Welcome back to Casa De Confidence. Today's guest didn't just dream big, she built a toy company to prove it. When Jodi Bondi Norgaard saw the problem with how girls were being represented on store shelves, she took action. From launching a Go Go Sports Girls to sitting at the White House advising on gender policy, Jodi's work is redefining what empowerment looks like for our kids, for ourselves. Get ready to challenge everything you thought about dolls, confidence, and cultural change. Welcome to the show, Jodi.
Thanks, Julie, for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I am so happy to have someone who has been doing the advocacy on behalf of women for a long time because I believe that we are in a very crucial place now where we need to continue to do the work. And you've shared that your daughter's experience in the toy aisle sparked this whole journey. What did that moment teach you? And not just as a mom, but as a change maker?
Yes, it was a moment where I was with my daughter, and she was 9 at the time. And she had just gotten done playing soccer. So she had just gotten done, her face is all rosy with exertion, pigtails, and, her shorts are still on, her shin guards, whatever. I tell you this because she looked like a normal kid on a Saturday.
Right?
When we're frantically going up and down the aisles, when a line of dolls just stopped me in my tracks. They had on short skirts, crop top, belly button ring, big hair, lots of makeup. I look at my daughter, my normal looking kid. I look at the dolls and I pick up one of the dolls, and the name on the hang tag is Lovely Lola. And I bought the doll, so she travels with me and she sits at my desk. But this is the doll.
Oh,
Yeah, this is Lovely Lola. And so I
I
know,
can't believe that.
I know, I
If you're not watching this on YouTube, you need to go watch it on YouTube. But guys, I mean, like the fuzzy pink jacket that looks like it's from, the corner. I don't know. Okay, I don't want to make a judgment, but yeah.
No, I know. I mean, we're it looks like a hooker. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
it was unbelievable. So I thought, okay, there's not one parent that wants their daughter to look, act, or be called Lovely Lola. So started pulling the other dolls in the that were her friends, the other dolls on line. And it was Dazzle and Destiny and Sizzle and Sue and
Ugh,
cute Andy. I mean, I seriously, I'm looking at these dolls and my daughter. I'm like, this does not make sense to me at all. And I was actually at a very nice toy store. It wasn't like I was at Walmart or just like a big box
right.
toy aisle. It was an independent, small,
Mhm,
cute toy store. So I bought the doll. I brought it home to my husband.
mhm.
Listen, I'm sick and tired of these negative messages that are marketed to girls, and I think I can do
Mhm.
something about it and create a positive image doll that encourages girls to be healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally through sports and physical activity.
Mhm.
So there were many situations that preceded this that, shaped who I am and how I feel about gender issues. But like, it's just human nature. Sometimes we just see things and we're just like, I don't like that, but what can I do to change it? So you push it aside. And so it was like this buildup. And that was it. I was just done. I had it.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of it. And I did. And I created
Yeah.
the sports doll line called the Go-Go Sports Girls. And
Mhm.
9 dolls. I ended up with 11 total, and
Mhm.
books to go along with
Yeah.
6 of them. So,
I love that. I love that. Having a niece and nieces rather, but my youngest niece is 11. She's turning 12, and she's in that age in which she is not quite a teenager, but she's still a little girl. And I want her to see and see the depiction of women that are strong, that are following their passions, that are not necessarily sidelined and it boxed in a gender role that it's not allowing them to dream big for themselves. So you were told over and over again that sports dolls don't sell.
Mhm.
What kept you going when the industry didn't believe in the vision?
Well, I had like this discrepancy
Mhm.
that was very clear to me. My first sale, it took 2 years from the rough draft to the actual debut of the first doll, which was at the US Open.
Okay.
First sale where 500 sold out in
Wow.
I know. So as a small business, oh,
Right?
I have a great thing. And when I called the United States Tennis Association, told the buyer what I had and what I was doing, she's like, I love this.
That's great.
And it took 5 minutes. So
Mhm.
I'm on to something. And Julie, I should point out to you too, in my research, I found a lot of baby dolls. I found a lot of rag dolls. And then there were 75 lines of fashion dolls. So that's what we're offering girls. That's it. In the doll category, which is, in the top selling all-time categories of toys, which is
Yeah.
great. And we are selling them baby dolls, rag dolls, and 75 lines of fashion dolls. Nothing else.
Nothing else.
And so I thought, okay, I'm not telling the toy industry to take down the fashion dolls at all. I'm
Mhm.
just saying, let's give them a choice.
Choices. Absolutely. Absolutely. I was a little girl that had dolls. I had my Barbies and by the way, if anyone is interested, I still have some of my baby dolls, but I never played with my baby dolls with me being a mom. I never did that. I just didn't, want to be I don't know, I guess not that I don't have maternal and compassion and love, but I wish I would have had something like this that showed the strong woman or the athletic girl or the one that was okay to be not just one or the other, right?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, right. And that I'll go on to my story, but just you know, as you were saying that and talking about your 11, almost 12-year-old niece, it's it's so sad, but a little girl studies show that the majority of little girls confidence peaks by the age of 9, and
Mhm.
then they
Yeah.
start feel the need to conform to the way a girl should look, should act, and should feel.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising with the confusing and conflicting messages that they receive. So
Mhm.
if they are a sporty girl, or they are a music girl, or they are,
Mhm.
they have all these other interests.
Yeah.
Society tends to tell us, okay, girls, you need to start focusing on appearance and attractiveness, and boys, you
Mhm.
need to start focusing on aggression.
Aggression, yeah, yeah.
And I just didn't feel that. I have 2 sons as well, and I just didn't feel like that was right, because my
Mhm.
boys were never aggressive, and my daughter was always very smart. All 3 of my kids
Mhm.
are pretty smart. Then I didn't want her to feel that she needed to conform to a way a girl should look, feel, and act, and then start, just focusing on her appearance and not
Yeah.
her what her mind and body can do. Um,
Mm.
so
100%, 100%. And I think that we live in a society in which we are so different, and yet rather than celebrating differences, we give very specific boxes, right, that you must fit into. And then, like you said, at the age of 9, that confidence starts to really be threatened in young women and young girls. And I've seen that in my niece. I've seen the difference. Between the 4-year-old who would say, "Okay, take my picture, pose," to the little girl now, and then I call her a little girl who is very hesitant to be in a picture and will kind of roll her eyes, but you can see that there's that, "I don't know if I wanna do this," type of mentality.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. So it is a lot of people in the toy industry call what the toy industry does to children a packaged childhood. So the toy
Mm. Wow.
packages the children's childhood. One of my realizations of these packaged childhood is a science kit that I wanted to buy my kids when they were younger.
Mhm.
And I went into our toy store in my town, and I, was immediately annoyed because there was a boy science aisle and a girl science aisle. And I thought, well, why? Right? Like, when did
It's I yeah.
that work?
Wow.
It's science. So I go down the boy aisle, I find, a lot of cool things, especially one, the volcano where you put in the baking soda and vinegar, it's exploding, has action on the packaging, and I'm thought, okay, pretty cool, but a good out
Mhm,
project or a project. So now I'm interested what's down the girl toy aisle or science aisle.
mhm.
And sure, you can be a scientist, but you can make your own fingernail polish, your own hair scrunchies, your own makeup,
Wow.
it just all revolves around appearance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's just there's in such subtle ways, and until and like you said in the beginning of your podcast, it's just once you start recognizing this and once
Mhm.
that light bulb goes on, then you start to
Yeah.
see more and more and more of this, the
Mhm.
push of these gender stereotypes, the fostering of these negative images.
Yeah.
And that we just it's so deeply rooted in our culture that we just tend to overlook it.
We tend to overlook it so many different times. And in my previous life, I was in the education industry and I saw as we created programming in STEM and we created programming in different areas that were traditionally science, for instance, math, really, really for boys, quote unquote. We saw a lot of girls shy away because they had not seen somebody before them model that it was possible for them.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that really reminded me that everything that we do and if we start to recognize it, we have to really talk about it and change narratives because even talking about it here may hopefully let someone think, "Oh, wait a minute. Let me look at that and start to recognize it," like you said. Now, you've been breaking gender stereotypes since 2009. In your eyes, how have the messages to young girls shifted in the last 15 years and even in the last 6 months?
Mm. Well, I was definitely seeing progress and feeling progress,
Mhm.
uh, but in the recently, we have definitely gone backwards.
Yeah.
And the World Economic Forum comes out every year, and they analyze
Mhm.
all the different countries and how close we are to gender equality, gender parity, and we are 136 years away from true gender equality.
Ugh.
And sadly, the United States used to be higher on the list of the countries studied, which are
Yeah.
many. Oh my gosh, we have gone down the list. It's embarrassing. It is
Mhm.
so uh, what
Yeah.
what is happening to our country. So we need to continue to speak up and talk
Mhm.
about this, talk about women's issues, talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Mhm.
and the importance of it, and the strides we have made, and how we are going backwards.
Yeah.
We use our voice, and we need to keep our foot on the gas.
We do.
Keep going. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend an event that I've been a part of for the past almost 13 years that I lived here in Connecticut. It's called Power of the Purse. And it is a fundraiser for organizations that are helping women with financial literacy, that are helping them create new narratives. Maybe women who were stuck in abusive marriages or never had the opportunity to go to school. In the fundraising that we do goes specifically to help kind of bridge the gap of that gender divide. We really advocate also for equal pay. We advocate for opportunities because in Connecticut, and actually I think the number they shared yesterday was that 86% of those living in poverty are women and children.
Yep.
It's huge.
It's so huge.
It's huge.
And it's not unintentional, unfortunately, because there's
No.
so many rules and regulations and laws that are don't help us.
Mhm. Yeah.
Especially now when we're getting into abortion rights and women
Mhm.
having to have children, and we have no
Yeah.
resources or very little resources for them.
No, absolutely, and I know that the more that these policies are then threatened, the more that women, for instance, in an abusive marriage won't be able to leave. Women who maybe don't want to, like we were talking about before we press record, women who are looking to not be a mom, who want to maybe do different things that don't, you know, fall into the mold. These things are being eradicated because of the policies that we're creating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely.
So the work is important. The work that you've been doing is incredibly important, more so now in again, I think that we need to speak out on this. So my question to you is because you've seen it and you're seeing it now, what are the subtle ways in which the media, marketing, or even parenting is contributing to these stereotypes?
There well, let's see, the how the marketing is contributed to this area. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did a study with the Gina Davis Institute
Yep.
not too long ago on how these it can be very very subtle on these marketing tools.
Mhm.
The voices that are used in marketing, where the the voices used for boys, products are usually very manly and deep and aggressive and, maybe loud. And for girls, it's more soft and calm.
Mhm.
Shoes for girls are more about nurturing and friendship. And
Mhm.
for boys, it's more about aggression and loud. And I did an article not too long ago. I had a last winter over the holidays. I had this young intern working for me, and she's great. And she asked ChatGPT to create a toy house or a toy
Mm.
village for girls, or a toy,
Okay.
let's say like a toy house for girls and a toy house for boys. The what and I did a article for this for, Ms. Magazine. The house that ChatGPT created was pink, and it was beautiful, but it was flowers, and it was calm, just very girly, uh,
Mhm.
traditional, typical girly. The boys,
Right.
blue and brown, and it was a city, and it had cars, and it had action, and I mean, you put the 2 side by side, and you're like, "Shit, I
Yeah.
wanna get that city. That looks great.
Yeah.
That looks like a lot happening over there."
Mhm.
But the words that are used in this too, or the colors that are used in this too for boys, it's more about the blues, the greens, the
Mhm.
browns,
Mhm.
pink and purple and yellow. So it's crazy how we tell children how
Yep.
much they're different
Yep.
than how much they are alike. And I am not saying that boys and girls, oh, people don't have differences at all.
Right.
But it's not all girls go one way, all boys go one way.
100%. And I think that, the from what you're saying to me, it's almost as if I I don't belong in that world because or I don't belong in the world I'm in because I look around me and I don't see pink houses. I don't see the yellow sunshine very I live in a world that is multicolored and that's the message that I'm getting from this that if I don't belong here, but also for me, I hate yellow. I hate these little pastels. Give me a hot pink. I love that. But it really is the messaging, right? Where do I belong?
Right, right. Exactly, exactly. Where do I belong? And that's a really good point, Julie, because one thing that I have noticed in my career, my observation and my studies is that a lot of women don't understand, like, where do I belong? Where do I fit in? Right. I mean, I
Mhm.
felt like that way in history class. I hated it because
Yeah.
I kept learning about all the great things that men did. And I would
Mhm.
myself, okay, where do I fit in? I learned
Yeah.
about Betsy Ross. I hate to sew. There is no freaking way.
Right. That's not me at all.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So, you hear these over and over. And what I've realized is that because the first half of my life, I felt like I tried to change to fit in. I thought to myself, maybe I need to buck up, or maybe I need to just figure it out and be tough.
Right.
But for far too long, women have been told to change to fit in, that we need to be fixed, that we need to lean in, but
Lean in.
we're
Yeah.
not broken.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
the thing. We're not broken. It's our system that's broken and our culture that needs to be fixed. And little girls, they're not broken either. It's the messages that we send them that are
Mhm.
broken. So that's what I'm trying to change, and
Mhm.
especially with my book, More Than a Doll, I'm trying to change, yeah, to tell people, or to say, listen, I am sounding the siren that gender
Mhm.
inequality doesn't begin in our teens or 20s. It begins the moment a child can hold a toy, a book, or watch a screen.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
let's look at the root of the problem. Let's quit putting band-aids on everything and saying, okay, ladies, you need to
Yeah.
figure it out. I'm so tired of that.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
that's us. That's the generation that we
Mhm.
have all been in. So let's look at the next generation, the up and
That's
coming
right.
generation, and give them a different narrative. Let's change the narrative.
Yeah, 100%. And, that is the systematic change that I'm hoping that we can help to support in the world. Now, you were invited to the White House under the Obama and then under Biden. And what did you learn about how systematic change happens and what can we do in our everyday life, specifically because I think it falls in our shoulders now?
It does. It does fall a lot on consumers'
Hmm.
shoulder. I learned a lot. I learned that change is very hard. But and fighting for equality
Hmm.
shouldn't be hard, and it shouldn't be this difficult. And
Yeah,
there is so much pushback, and it's just understanding those. Yeah, it's just educating others, I guess, on why it's
yeah.
so. But as women, I will say, I'm just going to point out women first, is that we are 51% of the population,
Hmm.
and we control 85% of the consumer purchasing power.
Yep.
So it's time for us to understand and know our
Hmm.
strengths and press on together. And as consumers, if you don't like something, don't bring it into your house, and don't buy
Hmm.
it. Don't
Yeah.
you don't have just because a big company puts out something
Right.
they say it's good, doesn't mean it's good.
It doesn't mean it's good. Absolutely.
I mean, we have to understand too that we live in a capitalistic society.
Hmm.
And, I look at women, for instance, in the beauty industry and all the makeup and all that
Hmm.
stuff. I go to my, dermatologist, and she's just like, oh my gosh, just put Aquaphor on your face. You're fine. I'm like, oh, that's like, a jar of
Yep.
Aquaphor,
Yep.
$40 versus, something at Nordstrom's for
Oh, yeah.
150. Hocus pocus stuff. So, we just, are we have to recognize that we have a lot of power.
We
And if you don't want it in your home for your child, you don't have to buy it. And that
True.
sends a huge message
Yeah.
to retailer, the manufacturer of the product. If people aren't buying it, you know,
Yeah.
not going to be on store shelves. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is also, for me, a reminder for the women who are maybe sitting aside in the sidelines thinking, well, this is not something that fits what I want or my needs or my values. You have the opportunity to decide, well, maybe I can make something that, right? And I want to encourage you that you don't have to think, oh, I can't do it. I don't know how. There's so many different support systems that can help you. And certainly, your example is terrific in that sense that we I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm sure you encounter obstacles. I'm sure you didn't go to school to make dolls, right? So you had to learn. And we're all beginners in the very first process of anything.
yep, yep. And you said an important word too, Julie, sideline. Women sitting on the sideline. And there's so many messages that are very subtle,
Mhm.
that we receive as children
Yeah.
that tell women to sit on the sidelines. And for instance, when my kids were little, there were certain T-shirts that were marketed to boys and marketed to girls. The
Mhm.
T-shirts marketed to boys said, um, "Training to be Batman," and "I'm a hero," and
Right.
then ones marketed to girls were "Training to be Batman's wife, I need a hero." So what I know, right? It's just it's and
Again.
then you can look at the like the terms that we hear quite a bit, like you
Yep.
throw like a girl, right? Whether
Yep.
it's a boy or a girl, it's meaning that it's negative, right? That
Mhm.
girl to a boy, they don't want to throw like a girl.
Yep.
When like a girl is used to mean something negative,
Something negative, yeah.
it's so disempowering.
Mhm.
So in these T-shirts, what they were saying to little girls and little boys is, "Little boys, you're the main character.
Yep.
Little girls, you're in the supporting role."
You're in the supporting role.
Oh, Warren Buffett once said, and it's one of my favorite quotes. A couple of years ago, he said, "Look at what our country has accomplished using half its talent, and imagine
Mm,
what we could accomplish if we pulled women off the sidelines."
yeah. Mm,
So
so good.
there's so many different little, you can call them microaggressions
Mhm. Mhm.
that, we absorb, that tell us, don't raise your hand and
Right.
sit on the sidelines. And yes, you're better in a supporting role.
Mm. I think that that's the empowerment that we need to continue to support each other with. That especially those that have been ingrained with a "you're in the sidelines." I just read an article not too long ago, um, and it was I forgot where I saw it. It was a short article. It was online, and it was about Albert Einstein and how there is a theory that a lot of his work with his wife is the most successful part of his work.
And he took it all.
And he took it all. And yet, when he divorced his wife, he never accomplished the same level of. So, what specifically, right, could be that was the woman's research, her intellect, and yet no credit was given. And I think that this happens in so many different places. Even in church. I read the book Mary Magdalene Unveiled not too long ago, and I talk about it in the podcast. But so one of the things that it was talking about is how in the Acts of the Apostles, there is actually a central character. Her name is Tekla, and she is the person who, equally to Paul, went out, or Peter went out and did a lot of the evangelizing, did a lot of the, also her money is what funded a lot of the ability for individuals to go out. But the mention of her in the current translation of the Bible is very minimal, very minimal. Whereas if you start to go back to other, the other scriptures or other historical documents, you can see that there are women throughout history, not in dating back as to those times. So that there is something that we need to pay attention to, like you said, these little microaggressions, and understand that it's not just the goodness and the smarts and it comes to sit in the shoulder of a man.
Right. In all religious writings and history, we have to realize has been interpreted
Mhm.
by men, written for men.
That's right.
So, I don't know if you ever read the book, The Other Einstein. It's
No, I'm gonna have to get that. Oh,
like right when we get off.
okay.
It is a historical fiction
Okay.
about Einstein's wife, him and his wife, and
Okay.
how so
Ooh.
she was actually the real Einstein. And after reading this, you will never say again, "Oh, okay," it'll be like, "You're as smart as Einstein's wife." Uh,
That's right. And by the way, this is not a bashing of man if you are thinking and sitting on the side. This is just a conversation about just giving the opportunity to women to shine just as much as men have been shining in this society. And there's a lot of really wonderful men. I'm married to one of them, and I know that they're very supportive of us, but we need to give equal space.
Mhm. Equal space. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, equal space. Speaking of books, um, I want to talk a little bit more about More Than a Doll because it isn't just about toys, it's about power, it's about perception, identity. What do you hope readers really take away from the book?
Um, I there's a lot of perseverance. There's a lot of
Mhm,
persistence, and it's determination, which is fueled by passion. So when I launched the dolls, the Go-Go Sports Girl dolls, the feedback that I got from toy buyers after the US Open success was, your product is great and girls would love Soccer Girl because my daughter plays soccer. I heard that
mhm,
over and over. But then I ultimately hear that it would never sell because ultimately girls like fashion. And then I was asked to create a fashion doll multiple
mm,
times. Like, that's my point. As a mother of a daughter and as a and I'm positive girls like more than fashion.
mhm.
And I also, would say, I've done my homework. There are 75 lines of fashion dolls. We really don't need any more.
That's
Uh,
right.
and so I realized that I wasn't in the toy business. I was in the business of social change.
Mhm,
So that's, I kind of embarked on this journey because of my passion, but I was very naive as
mhm.
well.
Yep,
Because it's hard to change a culture. And I thought maybe I couldn't change the culture, but maybe I could change an industry. And I'm still fighting for that within the
mhm.
industry. And I think the Gina Davis Institute study really shows that.
Right.
it- I work with a lot of large toy companies, so hopefully, hope they understand and recognize the need for change.
I think that, again, it's incredibly important the work that you're doing. And going back to your lovely Lola, right? And you brought her out right away. You bring her with you. So how is something like lovely Lola helping you with maybe helping individuals connect the dots, right, to something like unconscious bias in hiring decisions in the boardroom? Tell me more about that.
Right, right. It is very interesting. I mean, when you were saying that, it really made me think that my book isn't just for women.
Mhm,
It definitely for men, and I cannot tell you how many men have reached out to me or have emailed me saying every man needs to read this book to
mhm.
understand the
Yeah.
obstacles women face
Mm,
constantly,
yeah.
that they didn't understand that these are the obstacles women have to face,
Yeah.
uh, every day. But it does lead to how we, lovely Lola, the images that we show little girls and little boys at a young
Mhm.
age, it does lead to the boardroom and the
Yeah.
unconscious bias that we all carry. The like me bias is huge in business, it's huge in life, and we're all guilty of it. And we
Mhm.
all have biases. It's
Right.
recognizing our biases and then, changing our behavior once we recognize those biases. But
Mhm.
when we see this like me, biases in top levels of corporations or top levels of the boardroom, we tend to keep doing the same
Yep.
wash, rinse, repeat cycle
Mhm.
instead of creating change and moving us on a upward trajectory of progress. So
Mm. Yeah.
yeah, there is definitely a correlation of what we see in our lives, and then
Mhm.
what we bring to business. So I always feel that a table should represent the society it
Yeah.
represents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I I believe that there's room at the table for everyone. And, it's our responsibility not to just lean in, but it's also to invite others to be a part of the table. And I remember, and I've talked about it a couple times on the show. When I was in my corporate career, we had in our executive board in the C-suite, there was five of us, two males, three females. And a lot of times we were going through a change in our office, and the conference room was not available. So we're in somebody's office, and there's a conference table, smaller. I walk in, sit right at the table, and the other two ladies were sitting on the side.
Oh,
And I said, "Come over here. We're at the table." And one of them, older, she was in her late 50s at the time, and the other young woman was younger than I am. And at the time, I was in my mid 40s, but I just thought, wow, like it doesn't matter what age, but they still don't feel that it is appropriate for them to right away come and sit at this table. And that has always stayed with me. And it's one of the reasons why the work and the individual that I speak to here or outside of this podcast and my business and the work that I do in helping women empower themselves, be capable of creating a business, be able of creating that independence and freedom so that they can make an impact in their communities, in the lives of their children. And it is really important to me. And if there's anything that I want people to leave with after meeting me is that. And I know that that's probably the same passion that you have in the work that you're doing in the advocacy. And you've been an advocate and taking action for so long. I wonder for the listeners who are here who maybe, right, this is a conversation that they've sort of heard before, but maybe not really delved into it. The parents, the educators, the entrepreneurs, what is one small step, right? But powerful step that they can take today to change the narrative for next generations to begin, right? Because we're not going to change it overnight, but we need to start changing it.
I think it would be again, just purchasing, you know, good items that you want in your home and not,
Mm,
just because a big company again,
yeah.
gives you something that you don't like. It doesn't mean you need
Hmm.
to put it into your house or bring it into your house. So that would be one thing. And then I would just say it's really good to point out the gender stereotypes or the
Hmm.
gender inequality to to your children, to your household. Um, it doesn't have to be like negative. It can, it
Right.
just needs to be pointed out. And
Right.
it's like, hey, this isn't okay.
That's
Right?
right.
This isn't what we do in our household. This
Hmm.
doesn't represent society. So just pointing those things out is very, very important. And I also have an extensive list at the back of my book on what parents can do, what consumers can do, what the toy industry can do,
Can do. Yeah.
change this narrative and create a new blueprint for gender equality.
I love that. And one of the other things that you do have, and on your website, I want to encourage individuals to go to Jodi's website. We're going to have all the information for her book, for her resources for the dolls on in the show notes. But I want to encourage you to. There's so many different books in there that you can check out as well after you read Jodi's book. And really, these are the type of things that the more that we surround ourselves with, that we can normalize for others, that we can create a change, that we can normalize that. Seeing a woman in the boardroom, seeing a woman leading the charge, and not just sitting on the sidelines.
Right.
Mm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you up for a quick rapid fire on books that shaped you?
Sure.
Okay, so what book would you say you gift the most outside of your book?
Outside of my book, well, I love cookbooks, first of all, and they just
Ooh,
make
I love that.
I mean, that is probably the one thing I give a lot are cookbooks. I love, the book by Melinda Gates, The Moment of Lift.
Mhm. Yeah.
I also love the book, Invisible Women, which is super powerful.
Okay.
Statistics on how women have been left out of uh, research, whether it's in the
Mhm.
car
Yep.
industry, the medical industry. So I love that book. And then if I go into fiction, the one book I really find super interesting is called The Power. But it's
Okay.
dystopian, obviously fiction book, which is
Mhm.
pretty interesting, but all about female empowerment. So
Yeah.
I would say those three are super interesting.
That's good. That's good. Well, I'm gonna have to check out those other 2 books. And what if you are if you call yourself a feminist, what would be the one book that every feminist should read?
Besides my book,
Besides your book. And by the way, that's it has to be at the top of your list, everyone.
right.
And if you send me a message, my friends, on Instagram letting me know that you heard this episode, I will send you a copy of the book, even if it's 100 of you, but I want you to get it. So I actually have a few copies that I've ordered. When I remember that I was interviewing you today, I ordered a few copies. So, but please make sure that you message me, my friends.
And the other book, it is Melinda Gates's Power Moment of Lift.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was so life-changing to me, and I actually read it and listened to it, and I gave it to my husband to read.
Okay. So that
I said,
it's going on my list. It's actually on my Audible list, and I don't think I've downloaded it yet. So now you're encouraging me to go back and get that because
really,
yeah.
it's it's just her travels into different countries
Mhm.
and how she really has learned, and she's very, very religious and Catholic, and even the Vatican did a very negative, she talks about this, negative articles about her
Mm.
because to get women out of poverty in all
Mhm.
these countries, they have to have reproductive say
100%. Yeah.
reproductive rights.
Mhm.
And so, like you had said in the beginning, that 85% of the women are in poverty.
Right.
The ones that are in poverty are women and children, and they need to have control over the reproductive rights.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My dad he was a contractor for the Agency of International Development, that apparently is no longer. And I saw the work that he did, and that's the type of work that he went to all corners of the world, is to really be able to provide not only healthcare but reproductive services to communities that didn't have that. And some of the communities that receive not only the healthcare but education and programs are the ones that really were able to begin to become more thriving. And I've seen that in this. I mean, my dad is the last time he retired over 20 years ago. So this work continued for many years, but I cannot imagine, the world now that is going to be missing out in the programming and all the things that we have lost. And again, another conversation for another day, but we need to pick our battles and take one step. We cannot be overwhelmed. We need to think of one small step that we can take. I want to encourage the listeners, Jody, first to get your book. Second of all, check out your resources on the website. And from this conversation, I want you and I want to challenge you, my friend who is listening. Find one small thing that you can do and you can integrate from this conversation into your life, not tomorrow, not in a month, but today as you're listening, and create this ability to share and to educate each other. So share this episode as well with your friends. Anything last thoughts for me, Jody, before we say hasta luego?
No, but just to all your listeners, stay strong, stand tall, and dream big. Follow your gut, and trust your gut.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And my friends, as always, don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.